Customer experience connects with many different business disciplines, and we think it's time to explore some of those areas.
We look at the experience of things. And for me, it's always been that evolution of learning more about different ways we can better understand those needs and connect them to better design.
Exploring the intersection of customer experience with designing the user experience on this episode of the CX Leader Podcast.
The CX Leader Podcast with Steve Walker is produced by Walker, a business consulting firm that helps our clients unlock the potential of their customer experiences by placing the customer at the heart of all their business decisions. You can find out more at walkerinfo.com.
Hello, I'm Steve Walker, Chairman and CEO of Walker Information, and also the host of the CX Leader Podcast, and thank you for listening. On the CX Leader Podcast, we explore topics and themes to help leaders like you leverage all the benefits of customer experience and help your customers and prospects want to do more business with you. How does customer experience fit in today's business environment? As the impact of customer experience has become more and more evident, other disciplines have emerged, all uniquely connected to the work of CX leaders. However, it can get pretty confusing. For instance, how is customer success or customer service related to CX? How is user experience and digital experience connected to CX? And how is employee experience, employee engagement, and brand all tied to CX? While all of these practices are important, it can be difficult to pin down the boundaries. So here at the CX Leader Podcast, we thought it would be fascinating to explore some of these gray areas where CX and other business disciplines intersect. And we couldn't think of a better way to start this series with a look into UX, or user experience. With me in the studio today are two guests from GravityDrive, a user experience consulting services company that specializes in user research, user interface and interaction, usability, and visual design. Mike Miserendino is president, and Suzi Shapiro is principal user experience consultant. Mike and Suzi, thanks for joining us here on the CX Leader Podcast.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
So glad to have you. So, UX, or user experience, is something that has pretty much emerged over the last 20 years with the advent of the internet. But why don't you just give our listeners a little bit of your personal backgrounds and how you started the company and just what GravityDrive does. Mike, you want to kick it off?
Thank you. Sure. So for me, I've had this interest pretty much all my life, and I joke about a lot of us, try to find what our role in life is, what we want to do. And just like all kids, when you're really young, all of us wanted to play with the remote control, press buttons and stuff like that. I kind of went to the nth degree. I think when I was 8 years old, I sat in a cockpit of an airplane. I said, this is what I wanted to do. And I had everything planned from being a naval aviator to an astronaut, being the first one to Mars, you name it. But also as part of that, what I learned is that I was really geeked out about the interface, the design, all the thought that went into the human factors beyond the instrumentation. And at that time, I actually started studying aerospace engineering at a light side to learn more about it. And it just kind of grew and blossomed. By the time I got to college, I wanted to do more of this, and I couldn't find much out there. I got a background actually in computer science. That's what my degree is. But while I was in college, I've actually I continued this growth and studying, and they even asked me to do a college program on it, which I couldn't do after working 3 part-time jobs plus school. But eventually, I ended up helping out with UX at multiple companies over the years. I helped start up UX departments. And for me, it's always been a passion. It's not something that, I felt that it's something that I have to do, something I want to do. And through all those years of doing it for other organizations, we found that there's probably more companies out there that could use help, but they don't have their own UX program or they can't afford it. So I decided 10 years ago, this is our 10th year anniversary, to start up GravityDrive as a way to provide solutions to companies in a global environment to help them design better products, make them easy to use. And that's how that came to be. So for me, it's very much a journey of what I'm very passionate about. And I'm very lucky, like a lot of people who try to figure out what they want to do in life, to find that what I love to do and what I am doing are the same.
Congratulations on 10 years, by the way.
Thank you.
So, Suzi, how'd you arrive at GravityDrive?
Oh, always a long journey. So kind of like Mike, I've been doing this stuff consciously or unconsciously since I was a kid. Because I'm one of those generalist kind of people where if it's there, I'm interested and I want to learn how things work. I basically studied psychology as an undergrad, and I ended up getting my PhD in an area called human factors psychology. I want to know what the human factor is in everything that's going on. How is, if there's a person in there somewhere, they're doing something, and I want to know why. So I taught for a number of years at the university level because, man, there's nothing like teaching to allow you to learn about human beings. Because I had to figure out why my students weren't understanding things to be able to teach them better. And that's kind of what I do now, is I try to help people understand what's going on with their products or their services or their processes or whatever it might be that are making it hard for other ordinary human beings to do what they need to do.
So how'd you guys meet and how'd you get involved?
Well, through mutual interest in what used to be called the Usability Professionals Association. It's now called the UXPA, or User Experience Professionals Association, and we have been involved in the local chapter of this for Indiana since its inception, pretty much.
Yeah, like 12 or 13 years.
13 years.
Yeah.
Did you join right from the get-go, Suzi, or did you come on a little later?
Yeah, I stumbled on a presentation that they were having when they were just a baby organization, and they brought in one of the leaders of the field, and I knew who he was, and I wanted to hear what he had to say. And so I showed up, and in fact, I drove from Richmond, Indiana, over here to Indianapolis once a month to be part of the organization.
Great.
So that's it's an hour and a half journey.
So just describe a little bit about what you guys do for your customers.
Sure.
And kind of define this user experience a little more tightly, if you could.
I'm gonna let Suzi talk to the science side of that, but for me, it's always been about, simply put, we help people, find ways to make things easy to use. And throughout life, we're always basically given some kind of an interface for everything, from the doorknobs on a door, like, do you know if it's a push or pull on a handle? We joke about, we collect pictures of elevator buttons. I mean, we do all kinds of crazy things like this because everything we see and we touch, sometimes there's interaction there. It's not always just about websites, not just about software. We look at the experience of things. And for me, it's always been that evolution of learning more about different ways we can better understand those needs and connect them to better design. So a lot of times companies will design products outside of having any contact with users. And basically, if you put yourself in a vacuum like that, essentially the user experience equation becomes uninformed and unpredictable. We have this amazing ability just to go out and talk with people sometimes, learn about their needs. And then when you have a good idea, make a prototype and test it. So everything we do involves people. And if we don't involve people, we're not delivering a good user experience as far as we can tell. We're taking a guess. And so what's different about what we do and what we're passionate about is we really involve people at the center of our work.
And Suzi,
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about the human element here and
People
the
first.
science of it.
People first. Well, and sometimes, as Mike said, we actually not only have conversations with people, but we really focus on listening and trying to really understand what they're trying to tell us. Sometimes it isn't the words, sometimes it's the emotion behind it, sometimes it's the body language. So we like to be face-to-face with them if possible. Probably the most important part is, if we can, we watch people in context. So if I want to know how you use a product, it's one thing to bring you in the lab, give you the box, and let me show you show me what you do. But what's even more valuable is if you'll invite me into your home and you'll show me where you store it and how you get it out of the cupboard and when you use it and how you use it. And I look and see how much dust there is on it. And because sometimes when you ask people a question, particularly if they're trying to be helpful, they'll be really nice, and they'll tell you what they think you want to hear. Oh, it's a wonderful product. I love it. I use it all the time. And I go to your home, and it's in the back of a cupboard that takes you 10 minutes to get out and set up. And so when was the last time you used it?
So what is the mix of your clientele? Because I probably erred early on in talking just about the user interface as it applies to the web. So what is a lot of it with physical products?
We can really apply our science to whatever you interact with. So if I joke about, but you need to design a better coffee cup, we can help you. But literally, most of the work we've done has been digital platforms from websites, software, mobile. Pretty much we've had Uber years of experience doing it, and we've done it in a global setting. When we started out as a company, we did mostly international work. So we've done international products for many, many years, and domestically we're starting to do more. But for us, it's always been applying what we do in a human-centered design approach to making better products. And simply put, we can apply it to about everything that you interact with.
Keep in mind that technology interface is on a device.
Yeah.
And so part of the problems that people have with interacting with like a website or something are actually created by the device as much as they're created by the design of the interface itself.
Yeah, and excuse me for my faux pas there, because I think it has something to do with sort of where I come from, which tends to be more B2B focused and heavily into technology. And so when I think user experience, I'm like, hey, when I go to when I try to go get help or go get something. But
we can do that.
yeah, I know, I get it, and it's just how the economy has evolved, and really where the world's going. But yeah, I mean, still, it's it's about how does the human use the product or service, right?
Oh, definitely. And what's been exciting too is that in the different areas we've worked in, we've got to do some exciting things. Anything from designing legal products, business applications, financial, entertainment software, even, and whatever we did. It's always been very similar in how we approach it and still achieve success by using good, basically a process to involve people in that equation, learn from it and improve it. But it's also an iterative cycle. And a lot of times, folks think that you do it one and you're done and you're good to go. But we always recommend do it, as part of your, the whole approach to continuous improvement is that we've been doing this pretty much since it's been around, is that we look at, cycles of improvement. You test, you have an idea or a hypothesis, but the hypothesis is still a guess. Yeah. And until we actually test it, we don't know. And then guess what? Even after you improve at that time, you might, still do another round to see if that improvement actually worked. So as long as you have kind of like mindset of a continuous improvement and stuff, you can achieve it. And actually a lot of products today are going that way. I mean, they're doing it for software development purposes to continually give you updates, prevent it from viruses and all that, which is awesome. But also you can think of it in terms of the experience. And the experience does change. People's attitudes and their needs change. And we have to be able to adapt readily to that.
Give me an example of kind of what you think is the state of the art today.
In anything, or
just something that just as a practitioner, as a professional, what is like some of the ultimate user design that's gone on?
Oh, well, the real crazy stuff is actually happening in artificial intelligence,
right?
And it's not only the technology thinking for you or thinking to assist you, but it's also taking your interaction with that and moving it into different contexts. So we've gotten very used to keyboards and monitors, and then we got used to touch screens, and then we got used to those little devices that you can talk to. And I think we're going to have to get used to some other kinds of interfaces as well, right down to interfaces that are going to biologically change what's going on. For example, a device that would automatically administer your insulin based on how much or what you were eating if you're diabetic. So the way out there stuff is using technology in ways that only science fiction writers ever thought to do things. I'm a firm believer in people that are really going to be innovators, that you don't read business books, you read science fiction, because you need something that teaches you to think outside of what's outside your door.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things too, like Suzi just said, and being a sci-fi geek for me, this is a big thing, but as a kid, I watched 2001 Space Odyssey, and if a lot of people remember it, there's a lot of small scenes in there that have really interesting computer displays.
Hal's voice just died this week.
Yeah.
I just saw that in the paper. So
that's
anyway,
sad.
Sorry, a little trivia there.
The thing that was interesting is even back then, they were thinking about things that we take as part of the standard practice or approach to how we do interfaces today. They actually had thought about the entire navigation model inside the software that was actually being used by the astronauts to operate the ship. And even for problem solving, they were trying to think of ways, how do we display this to them to get quick information that they can solve the problem faster? And it was really fascinating. That was like 1968, and here we are today. And some of that stuff is, now pretty common, but they were dreaming that up back then. And I think for a lot of us, like Suzi said, there's a lot of amazing inspiration that comes from sci-fi, including this, Star Trek communicator, which, as a lot of people may or may not know, helped, spawn the idea of having a mobile phone.
Yeah.
And so we look to a lot of things that are dreams, things that become maybe things that we can only fantasize about in a different way that we'd love to have, but doesn't exist yet, and eventually become reality because there's that inner, need to connect in a better way. And when we find technology that's more seamless in our day-to-day life, that's more natural, I think that's going to be, for me, the next generation of where we're going. And augmented reality, to me, is still a hot item, and one that I believe that it's still lots and lots of opportunities there that we don't see always because, for one, it's still connecting, wearing sometimes hardware that people don't want to do, and there's part of that issue, but there's a lot of opportunity for the future.
My guests on the CX Leader podcast this week are Mike Miserendino, the president of GravityDrive, which is a user experience design and research company, and his colleague, Dr. Suzi Shapiro, who's the principal user and experience consultant. We're having a fascinating dialogue about how humans interact with technology and the products and services that they use. Hey, let's start to dial in a little more to what the CX professional. I think you guys have really expanded our thought process here today, but user experience is part of the overall customer experience. So just how do you see those two fitting together, and how do you see that working together?
Well, let me tell you a little story.
All right.
Okay, it's getting close to the holiday season when we're recording this. So I want you to imagine that I'm, a customer, business person, and at this time of the year, I like to do little things to thank the people that I'm working with. I really like fruitcake. And
You're one of the few, right?
And yes. And so what I want to do is every year I buy a fruitcake for about 40 people and send these out. So let's say you are a company that makes fruitcake and you want to find out how to get me as a customer because I'm buying more fruitcake than most people, right? So you really want me as a customer. So you get a customer experience person to help you, and you have them do some research for you to learn about me as a customer. Let's say when you do that, you find out that actually most people don't like fruitcake, and most people don't buy fruitcake, and you've been making way too much fruitcake and not enough stolen. And so now you change your business practices, you change your priorities, you make more of the thing that you're actually selling, you make less of the thing that isn't selling as well. But you've also learned a little bit more about me. So customer experience has really helped you as a business connect with that customer. And your business is now more successful, more profitable. So I think that's a lot of what customer experience has been able to do. But now let me take that a little further. What about the person that I'm sending the fruitcake to? Because so far, neither one of us has been talking about the person who's actually going to receive the fruitcake and potentially eat it. Remember that my customer research said people don't like fruitcake as much as they like stolen. So if I were sending a gift to people, shouldn't I be sending them something that they actually want and like? So now I've got a whole new situation of not just making my customer happy, the person who's going to buy my fruitcake, but helping that person think about the person who's actually receiving the gift. And a lot of what we do with user experience is we either figure out how to make a better fruitcake that more people like, or how to give people something that they really want and need, like they're stolen, instead of that fruitcake.
Awesome. Mike, comments?
No, she said it well. And, a lot of times we work with departments that will have either, marketing or customer experience team. And what I like too is like speaking about not just where we're different, but where we're also kind of a crossover, if you will. And I find that, in any company that's got, departments like this, you really need to be able to find ways to work together. A lot of the information comes in on the customer experience side has amazing ability to kind of give us like a strategic view of the entire market. Like if there's any, like what I call like a red alert, there's something out there that we need to think about in that horizon. There's a little red dot and there's a problem. And we know that there's, an unhappy experience and maybe it's growing. And as that, gets bigger, we want to figure out, well, why? What's going to help solve that problem? So a lot of times what we do is when we work together, the UX side or user experience, we're going to take a look at what's causing that issue to happen. But the two working together is where you have that good symbiosis of basically alert and fix it. And I think that's where there's a lot of magic that happens. When you separate those, we have a lot more guesswork. Because like even when we do stuff in user experience, we have to go out and get samples of folks to work with. And we trust that the organizations will give us the knowledge, their demographic to help us understand it and sample that audience to test, in a real sense with the folks who'd be most likely to use that product. But there's also, in the CX side, if you're capturing all this amazing information and you're learning about the audience and they're, like what is their current state of emotion or feelings towards this product, this company, but you're not sharing with the people who actually designed the product, then again, there's a breakdown. So the two have to work together, and that's something that I've always been a big believer in.
One of the hallmarks of the CX Leader podcast is what I call take-home value. So I'm a CX leader out there listening to the podcast. I've enjoyed this discussion about how user experience impacts the overall customer experience. So what's just one takeaway? What's one thing that I, as a CX leader, could take away from you guys today that would improve my knowledge of how the user interface might impact my overall customer experience?
The one thing I end up doing a lot of education because people don't necessarily know what we do. And the one thing that I really want people to understand is it's not about you. That it's, your customer, your client, the person who's going to use your product, that really should be the focus of what you do.
That's great advice, Suzi. Mike?
Absolutely, and it's very hard because a lot of us, I think we joke about, we call it egocentric design. We design for ourselves. So if you come up with a really awesome idea, we tend to build for what we want.
Yep.
But until you go out there and you experience what it's like for other people to use your idea, and actually, is it going to help them? Is it going to actually maybe cause more problems? We don't know. But again, it goes back to if you're not involving real people in that equation, it's not going to work. So for both customer experience and user experience, we have different needs to have contact with the outside audience. But without them, we're both working in vacuums, and we can't afford to do that.
Yeah, and I guess that if our listeners are wondering about how they might attack this user experience thing, that they might want to contact you guys.
Please. Love to help.
Just want to give a little bit of contact information real quick if people want to continue the conversation.
If you'd like to reach us online, we're at www.gravitydrive.com. We're locally based in Fishers, Indiana. And if you want to come out, reach us either through the website or give us a call. Our number is 317-900-1825.
Great. Mike Miserendino and Suzi Shapiro have been the guests on the podcast this week. Mike's the president of GravityDrive, and Suzi Shapiro is the principal user experience consultant. Again, you can learn more about GravityDrive on their website, www.gravitydrive.com. Mike and Suzi, thank you for joining us on the show this week. Fascinating discussion.
Thanks, Steve.
I'm going to start reading
Thanks,
more
Steve.
sci-fi.
Yeah, go for it.
Give you a long list.
And if you want to talk about anything else we discussed or about how Walker can help your business customer experience, you can contact me at steve.walker@walkerinformation.com or call me here in the U.S. at 1-317-843-8890. Don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I'd love to talk to you some more. Don't forget to subscribe to the CX Leader podcast. You can go to walkerinfo.com/podcast, and you'll find links to iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and on our YouTube channel as well. Simply go to walkerinfo.tv to listen. Thank you for listening to the CX Leader podcast, which is a production of Walker. We're a business consulting firm that can help you make customer experience your biggest competitive advantage. Find out more at walkerinfo.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next time on the CX Leader podcast.